Welcome to the fastest stop in town. Today, we're Masechtas Baba Kamadav Zion. We're going to begin on Vav Amud Beis, about 8 lines from the bottom. So we had a machlokas Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Shmuel in yesterday's daf, whether or not when it says that you're supposed to pay the best, does it mean the best of the niziks or the best of the mazik? And we established Rabbi Shmuel holds in the following case is a machlokas. If, let's say, the mazik, the one who did the damage, is very rich, and his ziburis, his lowest quality field, is equivalent to the best quality field of the nizik. So according to that, Rabbi Shmuel holds the mazik only has to give his worst field, because his worst field is similar to the best of the nizik. According to Rabbi Akiva, no, you always have to give the best in all situations. Now Rabbi Shmuel does point out that sometimes the mazik has to pay the best in the event that the mazik's worst is less than the best of the nizik. In that situation, you can't give ziboris. You can only give ziboris if it's equivalent to the nizik's best. Otherwise, he would agree to Rabbi Akiva, you have to give your best. Now, Rabbi Akiva Omer Loba Kasav El Ligvois El Nizikin, min idis, that the mazik has to give his best. He says v'kal v'chomer lehektish. He makes some type of a kal v'chomer to hektish. The Gemara wants to know now, my kal v'chomer lehektish. What does that mean? Is it talking about that our ox gored the ox of hektish? Now on this, the pasuk says shari ehu rachman v'lo shel hektish. Says Rashi. Di'im nogach shor shel hektish. Potter. Interesting. That if the whole din of paying for damages is only if it's between a person to another person, but if your animal gores an ox of hektish, we went out from this drasha of shor chavera v'lo shor shel hektish, they would be potter. Says Rashi, v'hu adin l'chol shar nezikin she'im mazik as a hektish potter. When it comes to all forms of damages, that's the din. Okay. We'll see if we continue with that line of thought, that's the drasha, that if your ox scores an ox of hektish, you're just completely potter, or it's maybe something else. We'll see. So anyway, that can't be what it's talking about, because why would we say you have to pay from idiots? You don't have to pay anything. El loimer, it's coming to tell you, if a person says, harlei monol bedekabayas, a person designates $100 for the bedekabayas, for the upkeep of the base of Mikdash. The Asi Gizbor, so the treasurer can come, v'shalkom idiots. He's allowed to take from this pledge this man's best. So lo yehei el bal chayiv. The question is, why would that be? L'chayra, he's no different than a bal chayiv, someone who owes money to another person. And as we see on Zayin Manalef, a bal chayiv bebeinanis, as we saw also previously in Masechtas Gittin, Daf Mem Ches, that a Baal Chayiv pays Beinanis. He doesn't pay from the best. So that wouldn't be true either. Maybe Rabbi Akiva Taka holds that no, a Baal Chayiv does pay for the best. So he called Mifrach. As we just said, that when it comes to, that may apply in general, that he would maybe say a Baal Chayiv pays idiots. But again, maybe that's not when it comes to the ox of hektish, in which we see it's har koichay, because if someone did damage to it, you'd be potter. So oilam de nagach tor didan latur de hektish. Where it says no, we're going to go back to what we said. The kakashul achsharei omer achman v'lo shishul hektish. What do you mean? The pasuk excludes, but it doesn't exclude it to say that you're potter. Rabbi Akiva several Reb Shimon ben Manasseh, the Omer Shimon ben Manasseh. Omer, he says, shorshel hektish shenagach shorshel hedyet potter. It's true. If an ox of hektish gores a regular person's ox, talk to that person, that they would be potter. Hektish would be potter. However, shorshel hektish shenagach shor hektish bein tam bein muid misham nesek shalem. It's coming to tell us that even though normally we make a chiluk, we make a distinction between the tam and the muid, that a tam only pays net chatzi nezek. That's only when it's shariehu. V'lo shor shel hektish. when we're dealing with Shorshel Hektish, if your ox gores an ox of Hektish, you pay Nezek Shalom the first time as well. So Yehach Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Kiva Mamai, it is the Nizik V'Ziboris the Mazik Pligi. Why are we saying that Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Kiva are arguing about the best of the Nizik and the worst of the Mazik? As we said that case, can the Mazik just simply pay his worst because his worst is comparable to the Nizik's best? So that's how we establish that's what the Machlokas is. Maybe everyone holds in that case we go after the Nizik, namely the Mazik only has to pay Ziboris. Maybe they just argue about this din. Rabbi Kiva Savar Rav Shimon Manasi, Rabbi Shmuel Savar Karabanan. Maybe the whole Machlokas is just pashit whether or not when it comes to an ox that gores Shorshel Hektish the first time and it's a tam, do you still pay only Chatzi Nezek or do you pay Nezek Shalom right away? So maybe that's the whole Machlokas. Where it says that can't be. Because Im Kain, it doesn't fit the words. My Loba HaKasav. What do you mean this language, Loba HaKasav? Furthermore, but my Kavachomer Hektish. If it's the whole case is Hektish, how can you say it's a Kavachomer to Hektish? Right? So it's obviously telling you it's not the case of Hektish. Hektish, we establish, is a case of Hektish, but you can't say the Machlokas is a case of Hektish, Kavachomer Hektish. That doesn't make sense. But according explicitly. Meitiv Seder, Meitiv Karmi Shal, Meitiv Seder Shal Nizik, Meitiv Karmi Shal Nizik. To be Shmuel, we keep Omer, Meitiv Seder Shal Mazik, Meitiv Karmi Shal Mazik. So we have Beferish already, a brisa that establishes that this is in fact the Machlokas. But again, that is how we understand the Kavachomer to Hektish in this particular way. Okay. Two dots. So now Ramile Abaye L'Rava. So Abaye poses a stira im sukkim. Ksiv, Rami always means a stira im sukkim. So Ksiv, on one hand, the pasuk says, Meitiv Siddur, Meitiv Karmi, Shalem, that you pay your best. So Meitiv in, Midachrin Eloi. You're supposed to only pay your very best, the best. But elsewhere the pasuk says Yashav Rabbi Shavik Kesav Fil Subin, that when it comes to paying back, you pay back in any way, even if it's Shavik Kesav, even bran. Now bran l'chor is not the best. So how do we reconcile this machlokas? This stirim psukim, which is question 5. So one answer is going to be here, and believe it or not, another answer is going to be on daf tes in 2 blocks from now. So lokasha, kan medaito, kan bal karchay. One is consensually, and one is when we're dealing with against your will. Okay. Fine. So what exactly does that mean? So Amar Ula Beredu Rav Ila Dekanami. I'll prove this to you. Says the Rashi, Deka. Actually, before we do it, let's look at Rashi de Ramaschil Medaitoi. Imishalim le mazik nisko medaito. If the mazik pays without anyone causing trouble, dula aterche, no one troubles, lit cycle up to scream at him, bring him to Beis Din, then shakal subin. So we're saying, you know what? If you're kind, you give it. We don't care, just give it. However, in a right hamazik nishalim nisko and nizik. If the Beis Din starts getting involved, you're making it difficult for everyone, so we're going to be strict on you. That's the pshat. So Amr Ula Rav Eloi Dekanami, I'll prove to you that this is in fact the din. Says Rashi, the Gabi Meitiv Ksiv Yishalem the Mashi Yishalem Bal Karchay. Yishalem, I'm going to force you to pay. The Ksiv Yishalem Bal Karchay. That's the language. Armali Abaye Miksiv Yishulam Yishalem Ksiv Medaito Mashma. So it's not a proof at all. El Amr Abaya Kidamar Desanya Hari Shahayu Loi Batim Sadosukramim. A person who has houses, fields, and vineyards, and he doesn't want to go out and sell them. So meiser ani ad mechsa. So you can eat meiser ani until half. Now, what on earth is this talking about? Let's look at Rashi. So Rashi says that we're dealing with a field which is shava masayim zuz. It's worth 200 zuz. We'll see the significance of that number. Says Rashi, mi sheishel masayim zuz. Someone who has that much money, you're not considered to be poor, and therefore lo yitel lekashechapeya. You're not considered to be poor once you have 200 zuz. And therefore, if you would take leket shechapeya meiser ani and you own assets or you have cash at 200 zuz, you can't do it. Hayulu masayim zuz chaser dinner. Let's say you have 200 minus 1, which means you have 199. The naslu shava elaf zuz, and I give you something worth 1,000 bavasachas. At the same time, harise yitoil. So you can take it. In other words, if you have 199 and I give you $1,000 worth of tzedakah, you don't have to say I can only take one. Since you collected it when you had less than the amount, the cutoff amount, so you can take more at that one shot. This guy had fields that were worth 200, but he can't sell it. So what does he do? Meiser on mechsa shava meazuz. He can eat meiser ani up to 100. The karkois of yimchor b'meazuz, and he can sell his land for 100. The tfei mepalga, says Rashi, lo zayli oilam v'har yeshul masayim zuz. So basically, a person may cut his price of the house for 100 to 100, and he'll be able to still eat up until half, which means another 100, so it will equal 200. So let's read this again in the Gemara. So which was worth 200, and you can't sell them, but you're starving, so what do? So you could sell it for 100, and then you could eat up another 100. So v'havi bomar hechidam. What's the case? If your property went down and everyone else's property went down to 100, so afil tuvanami lisfule, you should give him even more than 100. The hazoil manami, which basically means again he's pashut an ani. So if he's an ani and he only has 100, it's only worth 100. So then you can give him more than 100. As we said, even if it's 199, you can still give him more than 1. You give him 1,000. So how do we understand this? Everyone else's property went up in value. Since with his property, since everyone sees that he's desperate to get money, zol are. So that caused his value to go down because people know that he needs to do a quick sale. And therefore people realize, even though the property really does have value, but the problem is that everyone knows that he's trying to sell it desperately because he needs the money for food, so people are going to end up offering him a lot less. As we continue to Zion Mabez. So if that's the case, I feel then you shouldn't be able to give him anything. Why? Because really his house is worth 200 zuz, and he's just not a good businessman. That everyone knows he's trying to sell it. But if the house is really worth 200 zuz, even though no one wants to give it to him, but that's how much it really is worth, so he's not an ani. He shouldn't be able to get half. So the Amar Mar Allah Lutzricha. The Yomei Nisan in the spring, Yikar Arasa. Lands are more expensive. Typically, says Rashi, B'mnei Shahaloikech near Chayresh, Oisen B'mosakayetz, Zarin B'tishrei. What they used to do with these plowed fields is that during the summer months it was plowed, and then they would seed them in Tishrei. Umar Cheshbon made Tishrei Zili. So when it's the fall, the price goes down. She'ein sipek lazaron b'oisa shah, because you can no longer plant on it. So therefore you kind of waste time. It's not the best time to buy land. So, and we also know typically there's cycles to sell your house, and the springtime is a good time. So also here, Yemei Nisan Yikara Rasa, the land is worth more. Yemei Tishrei Zol Rasa, in the month of Tishrei, again like in the not the spring but in the autumn, your price goes down. Now the Kuliam and Natri on Nisan Mizavni. Most people are going to wait until Nisan and sell their property. They could wait 6 months because they don't need the money so badly, and therefore they'll be able to get the value for it in the Yemei Nisan. V'hai, but this person, Hoyel, v'itz terichel lezuze, since he needs the money desperately, zavin kidahashta. He'll sell it now in the fall, which for much less. Now, we say like this, Ad palga, half of its value, urchi lemezel. A person could possibly go down that far. Tfei lav urchi lemezel. However, less than that, a person is typically not going to do so, drop their price below half. V'hachinami, kami nezikin, din be'idius. We say the din is that you pay idius. The omerle ihu, if the nizik says havli beinanis, give me beinanis, which is middle property, not idius, but tfei porta, more property. Because if beinanis is less expensive, so at the end of the day, you still owe me X amount of dollars. So you can give me very high quality land, or you can give me more middle-sized quality land. So the nizik says, give me beinanis. Or Malay, we say like this: Ishaklas kedinach. If you take properly, shakel kedahashta, then you can take it the way it is now. Ve'ilo shakel. If you don't take now, kiyukra nulkame. I'll give it to you at a higher price later on. By the way, Tosis over here asked the question in terms of hentinach sadais. I understand, like Rashi explained fields, but how about houses? So it also similar season. Okay, so let's look at this Rashi. Hachi nami gamin nezikin, nami bahachi mitartzu kroi. This is how we can explain these psukim. Going Yemei Nisan Yikar Rasa. In the spring, the land is expensive. Yemei Tishrei Zoil. In autumn, the price is low. Vehizik b'Tishrei. He did damage when the prices were low. Shava mana. V'aligvais mana mikarkois amazik. He wants to come and collect the karka from the mazik. V'dina b'idius. Kidiksemetiv. So technically, he's supposed to collect idius. But of course, that idius is going to be less valuable because he has to collect it. Wants to collect it now in the fall. The shako kizoil dahashta. So you can take it, the idius, which is less expensive now. The armale nizik. But if the nizik says back in Rashi, havli b'beininus kidahashta, give it to me beininus like now. Tfei port a little bit more. Mamad de bois lamesively b'idius. Because idius, again, is higher quality land, so you're not going to get the same amount of acreage. Lo matzu lemichve. You don't have to. We're not going to force the mazik to do that. Ormele mazik, he could say, "Ish shaklas idius ki dinoch shakal ki hashta." You can take the idius now in the fall. The ilo shakal mebeinanis ki yukro do kameh. Or I'm going to give you the baininess later on. Now, later on in the spring, everything's more expensive, which means so therefore, that's what it means, subin. So if you want, I can give you what you deserve, which is idius now. Or if you really want baininess, then I could push it off, and it feels subin. Doesn't mean subin, but even lower quality than idius. Okay, so that's what a long svara to explain the stiras psukim. So Maskav Rabbi Bar Yaakov Im Kain Harasa Kaichen Shel Nizakin. So you're causing the weakening of the nizik to collect. Eitzel beinis v'ziboris. Trachmana oimer memete v'ad amr mebeinis v'ziboris namilo. You're making it difficult for this nizik. I don't understand. The pasuk seems to be telling us that we should support the nizik. He's the victim over here. He's the damaged party. But the way you're framing it, it sounds like we're causing him more trouble. That he can't get idius. because the bainness he can't get either. He has to wait until it's much more expensive, so he's not going to get as much bainness. El Omer Rav Acha bar Yaakov I'ika ladmuye. If we're going to compare it at all, well, Bal Choiv midaminon le. Then we're going to compare it to a Bal Choiv. What's that? Bal Choiv dinu bebainness. We know that a Bal Choiv, he gets the bainness, the middle fields, when you collect. The Armule Havli Zibor Tfei Porta, if he says, give me the lowest quality, but give me more acres of that, Armule I Shaklas Kedina Shakal Kedahashta. You can take the land now, which is bainness. The low, if you really want the Ziboris, Shakal Ki Kordil Kame, then you can take it when it's more expensive, the Ziboris later on. So Masker Rabacha Beredu Ravika, in Kain Nalta Delis Mithilavin. You're closing the doors from borrowers. We want to be able to incentivize people to get loans. But if you're going to make it difficult to the Malva, the lender's not going to want to lend anymore. This is hard to believe. The Ermele Ilu Havi Lezuzi, if I had money, Havi Shaka Gedahashta, I'd be able to take it from now. Hashta the Zuzi Gaboch, since the money is by you, Eshko B'Yukadil Kameh, I can only get it once it's more expensive later on. Why would we punish the Malva? El Amarabacha Boredu Ravika Iikla Demuye Lixuvas Isha Medaminan law. Medaminan. If we're going to compare it, we compare Xuvas Isha. What's the din by Xuvas Isha? The Xuvas Isha Dina Bizibaris. A woman collects the lowest quality of the fields. The Amrullah, but if she says, if she says, Havli, Bainas, give me better lands, but Sirporta, obviously, because I'm not asking for my Ziboris, which is what I'm entitled to, but give me Bainness, which is higher quality, which means obviously I'll get less. Amrullah, you could say, if you want to take the Ziboris, take it now, the way it is. If you want Bainness, fine, but it'll be more expensive. So, Mikol Makum Kasha, after all this, Mikol Makum Kasha, it's still a question. Basically, what exactly is the meaning of these psukim? Says Rashi, Meitiv Yoshiv de Merabi Subin, right? So we understand, what is the answer to that? So, Amarava, Kol Diyoyev Le, Meitiv Le, Leisiv Le. It just means that whatever you give the best, whatever it is, make it be of your best. So even if we're dealing with brand, make sure that the brand that you give is the best brand. Fine, that's what it means. It's talking about fields. Elkias Rav Papa Rav Huna Beredu Rav Yoshua Mibei Rav Pirshua. He explained, Kol Mili Meitavu. All metaltalin is considered to be meitav. Dilo Mizdabin Hacha. Mizdabin b'masa chariti. If you don't have any sellers here, you can always sell it somewhere else. However, when it comes to land, in that situation, it's different, and therefore we say you have to give meitiv in order that people will be able to literally jump toward it. So again, the idea behind this is that if you want to give metaltalin, you can give it any, because all metaltalin is meitav. However, if you want to give karka, it's got to be idios. Okay, 2 dots. Question 5. So the answer we said over here is kol mili meitav hu mibar mekarka. Everything is meitav except for karka. Do we do question 6 yet? Let's see. Nizik o malve shebo litroiv b'choivim karka zibaris umazik o yuloiva oimrim kivando shaka kedina nitan lehem kiyukro kamei v'hadin imi umatam. So we say that the din should be with the nizik and it should be with the malva. Let's see how he writes this. Hadin im hanizik. Hadin im hamalva. Why is the din with the nizik? Kivan the medin tayra shakal me'idi is supposed to get the best. Bichlal zeb beinanis ziboris kahashta. Right? So it's hard to imagine otherwise. The din is also the malva. The imkain, if not, nalas delas min nilav, as we say, you're going to make it difficult for people to get loans in that situation. Okay. Similar question is TA25. Bal chayiv she'omer havli ziboris tfei porta v'haloiva omer shkol kiyukudo kameh hadini mi. The din will be with the malve madua, again, mipnei imkein nalta delet mipnei lava. That's TA25. TB25. Be'ez oifen the hani gzeres shovel Rabbi Shmuel. Actually, we had this before. Memetiv the nizik. Be'ez oifen the hani krol shel memetiv the mazik. So we actually had this on Vavum at Beis. So this is TB25. So he said it's all totally on whether or not the mazik's worst is equal or less than the nizik's worst. Let's see what I wrote over here. Kasher hakarkas shelo hu haidius ki karkas shel hamazik shu ziboris de nizik shu ziboris de mazik im yesh idius v'ziboris de nizik v'lo karka idius shel nizik pachas kakarka. Okay. Fine. I'm not going to understand what I wrote so well, but that's the shot. Okay, we're going to go weiter. I want to get a little bit into the next daf. Okay, there's 2 dots here somewhere, right? Okay. So, Bamine Rav Shmuel Baraba me Akranya. So that question, we have one answer. We're going to get to it again. So he asked the following. Me Rabbi Abba Kashen Shamin, when they are involved in the evaluations, B'shaloi He Shamin or B'shal Oilam He Shamin? How do they evaluate? It says Rashi. B'shaloi He Shamin. Bahu Dahavi Idis Lididei. This man's best, the Mazik Yoivle, he has to give. The Isla Idis Ziboris. Let's say this guy has best and good and poor quality. Shavi Ziboris Didei Ki Idis de Alma. But the Mazik's worst is like the world's best. Which means this is a very wealthy guy. So his worst is basically equivalent to the world's best. Afil Hachi Lo Yovli Mazik Unizik El Idis Didei. The Basa Arasa Didei Azlinan. Maybe if you hold that we go bust to the Mazik, so the question is, when we evaluate it, are we evaluating it in comparison to the rest of the world or his own? If you're looking at his own, so you always have to give the best, even if, again, he has the best quality fields in the world, better than everyone else's. Or do we just evaluate it in accordance to the rest of the world? And therefore, if the rest of the world's best is equivalent to his worst, so he only has to give his worst. So Gemara says like this. That's the question. Now, leave there, so according to him, you go bust to the nizik. So that's not the question. When he says you go after the mazik, it's just coming to exclude the nizik, but you have to go bust to the mazik, and therefore the mazik always you have to pay his best. It's coming to exclude everyone. So Amr Rahman Amr mate of Sadehu. It says Sadehu. Vyad Amr Mishal Aylam. Let's talk about his. Hein Shaman. So obviously we go busser him. So whatever is his best is what he has to give. Eisvei, for Gemara, it's not true. Ein lo ella idius. Let's say you only have the best. So kulam goivim in idius. So then everything is collected from idius. Says Rashi. This guy is a lot of trouble. He's a lot of debt. There's damages he has to pay for, which usually pay idiots. There is he owes people money, usually pay bainas. He has ksuvas isha to deal with, that's Ziboris. But this guy, all he has is idiot's property, so obviously he's gonna have to give all these 3 different people idiots. Right? Goivin Menidis, Bainis, Kulon Goivin Bebainis. If all he has is middle property, you have to give it everyone Bainis. Even though, again, you can say, what do you mean? He did damage. The damage is Matos today, but that's all he has. That's his best. Zibaris, Kulon Goivin Zibaris. Same thing. Hayulu Edis Bainis Zibaris. This is where it's all very clear explained that he has 3 different quality lands. So Nizakin, when it comes to the damage one, is Be'idius. Ubal Chay Be'Bainis is the middle land. Ksuvasisha is the Bizaboris the inferior. So that's obvious. Now, now this is where it gets a little bit confusing. Let's say he has Idius Ubainis Nizikin Be'idius. So what do we do? He has Idius, he has the best and the middle. So the Nizikin is Be'idius. Obviously, you give your best land for damage. Ubal Chay Ksuvasisha Be'Bainis. So the din is the Baininus property. You have to give the Bal Chayiv, and also, which is what you normally do, but even the Ksuvasisha, because you don't have Ziboris, you give them Baininus. We're gonna go back to that case soon. Baininus is Ziboris, so Nizakin Ubal Chayiv Baininus. Give the damage and the Bal Chayiv the middle, which is his best. Ksuvasisha Ziboris, because that's what you have. Ziboris goes for Ksuvasisha. Okay. That seems pretty straightforward, but it's not so simple. As we continue, Chesam and Aleph. Idius v'zibaris, if he has the best and the worst, so nizakin b'idius, and ubal chayiv ksuvas isha b'zibaris. This is a big chiddush, that when it comes to the bal chayiv, instead of giving him idius property, because you don't have bainis property, but instead of giving him idius property, you give him inferior property. Katani mia, but see, we learned the middle case, baininus Ziboris, if he has middle and inferior quality, so nizakin ubal chay b'bainis. So it says that when it comes to nizikin, so you have this is the case of bainis and ziboris. Right, that's the last line. So the nizikin ubal chay gets bainis, ksuvasishas ziboris. Now the iyamrid b'shol hein shamin, if we're talking evaluating after him. Tiyasa Baininus Shaloi Kidis, so his Baininus, because he only has Baininus and Ziboris, but his Baininus should be like his best, and his Ziboris should be like his middle. So therefore, it should be like he has the best and the middle. And therefore, Tiyasa Baininus Shaloi Kidis, the Yadacha Bal Chayv Etzel Ziboris. It should be the same thing as the case above, in which you have Idis and Ziboris. So the Baininus becomes the Idis. And then we should say, after you paid the nizik, so why should the Bal Chayiv get, in this case, the Baininus? He should get Ziboris. So we see that we go after the world, not his best. That is the chiddush which is being introduced over here. Okay. So this is actually, which we didn't completely get to, but question TA26, it says, Tanya Hoylo Bainis Ziboris Nizakin Abal Chayb Bainis Madul Yidchabal Habal Chayb Mea Bainis Ziboris Habainis He Idius today. So this is one raya that we see that we do not go buster the person, but rather we go buster the oilum, is what we see, right? We see you go after the world, not his best. So is TA26.com.